So, here's my story. I, 33M, have been married to my wife, Emma, 31F, for 7 years. No kids, just us and our dog. We both have pretty demanding jobs, so life has been a lot of late nights and takeout for a while now. We got used to the routine, and I never really questioned anything, until recently. Emma started using this taxi service a lot. Like a lot. At first, I didn't think much of it. Her office was across town, and she often had to stay late for meetings, so it made sense. She used the same driver, guy named Marcus. I thought it was just her being practical, you know? She said he was reliable and knew her schedule. Fine, right? But then she started talking about Marcus a lot. Casual stuff, like how he was so nice and how they clicked because they had similar tastes in music. She even said he was funny, which I thought was weird because Emma doesn't usually rave about people. But I shrugged it off. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? She started getting home later and later. Sometimes she'd come in, laughing about something that Marcus said. And the way she talked about him? It started to feel off. I asked her once if there was something going on, half joking, and she got all defensive. Like, "Oh my God, are you serious? He's just my driver. I can't believe you'd even think that." She made me feel like an idiot for even asking, so I let it go. But things didn't add up. She started booking girls' nights a lot more often, and her explanations about where she was just didn't always match up. There were times she claimed she was with a friend, but I'd see her Insta later, and there'd be no photos or tags. It was weird, but I told myself I was overthinking it. She'd never cheat on me, right? Then came the night that everything really started unraveling. Emma was supposed to be at another one of her girls' nights. She told me she'd be home late, and I didn't think much of it. I had a long day myself, so I figured I'd just relax and go to bed early. Around 11 p.m., I'm dozing off when I hear a car pull up outside. I wasn't expecting her home so soon, but whatever. Except, she didn't come in right away. I'm looking out the window, and I see the damn taxi parked in our driveway. I squint, trying to make out what's happening. And then, through the dim street light, I see it. Marcus, fucking Marcus, is sitting there in the driver's seat, and Emma? Well, she's in the front passenger seat, laughing. But not just any laugh. That kind of giggly, flirty laugh that you just know when you hear it. I felt something twist in my gut. I couldn't see exactly what was going on, but it didn't feel right. I debated going outside, confronting her right there, but I didn't want to seem paranoid, you know? So I did nothing. I let it go. Maybe she was just being friendly. When she finally came inside, she acted like nothing was wrong. She even kissed me goodnight, like it was any other night. I asked her how her girls' night was, and she went into this long story about how they had drinks and gossiped about work. I didn't push it, but something felt off. The next few weeks were more of the same. More late nights, more excuses, more taxi rides with Marcus. I noticed her phone was always on silent when she was home, and she got really jumpy if I even glanced in her direction while she was texting. One night, I casually mentioned that we hadn't spent much time together lately, and she blew up at me, saying I was suffocating her, and she needed space. It came out of nowhere, and her reaction was way over the top. She even stormed out for a walk, slamming the door behind her. Something was going on. I could feel it. I knew I needed to get to the bottom of this, so I started paying more attention to the little things. The way she was always glued to her phone, but never around me. How she'd leave the room to take calls, or say they were work-related, but always seemed way too personal. And her social media? Completely scrubbed of anything we ever did together. All her posts were solo pics or random memes now. Then one night, I decided to test something. I told Emma I had a work event and would be out late. I even dressed up for it to make it seem legit. I wanted to see if she'd take the opportunity to meet up with Marcus. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed proof. Sure enough, as soon as I left the house, I waited around the corner in my car. Not even 20 minutes later, I see the same damn taxi pull up. She walks out of the house all dressed up like she's going to some fancy restaurant, smiling and texting on her phone. And then Marcus steps out of the car to open the door for her, like this was some romantic date night. They didn't see me because I parked in the shadows, but my blood was boiling at this point. They drove off, and I followed. I don't know what I was expecting, maybe them heading to some fancy bar or restaurant, but they didn't. Instead, they parked on this side street, a quiet, secluded area. And that's when I saw it. She leaned over, and they kissed. Not some innocent, friendly kiss. No. This was full-on, passionate, like they'd been doing this for a while. My heart sank. I knew at that moment that all those doubts I had, all the weird behavior? It wasn't in my head. My wife was cheating on me with her taxi driver. I sat there, frozen. I should have confronted them right there, but I didn't. I couldn't. I was so pissed off, I thought I might do something I'd regret. So instead, I took a photo of them kissing. I needed evidence. Proof that this wasn't just my imagination running wild. After that night, everything felt different. I didn't sleep well, and every little noise in the house made me tense up. I had the photo of them kissing stored safely on my phone, but I didn't want to look at it. It was too real, too painful. I wanted to confront Emma right then and there, but part of me hesitated. I wasn't ready for the fallout. The following days were a blur. I pretended like everything was normal. Emma was still acting sweet, going about her routines, but I could see through her facade. Every time she picked up her phone, my stomach twisted. I started doing little things to gather more evidence, checking her social media, asking her about her nights out, even trying to casually bring up Marcus. She brushed it off every time, getting defensive if I pushed too hard. One afternoon, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. I ended up in a small coffee shop near our place, and to my surprise I saw Marcus sitting at a table by the window. My heart raced as I watched him, the pieces of the puzzle coming together. He was scrolling through his phone, completely unaware of the storm brewing around him. I sat down at a table across from him, hoping to catch a glimpse of something that would confirm my suspicions. As I observed him, I overheard a conversation with another driver who joined him. They were joking about picking up a pretty lady, and how this one girl was a real catch. My stomach twisted again. It was like a punch to the gut. I snapped a quick photo of him, just in case I needed it later. Then, feeling emboldened, I walked up to him. I knew I had to confront him, even if it was just to get some answers. "Marcus, right?" I said, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. He looked up, slightly startled. Yeah? Do I know you?" I leaned in, keeping my voice low. "I'm Emma's husband." His expression shifted from surprise to something like guilt. "Oh, hey man! How's she doing?" Something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to play games anymore. "How do you think she's doing? You're the one picking her up while I'm at home thinking everything's fine." Marcus fumbled for words. "Look, man, I'm just her driver." "I didn't know." I cut him off. "Save it. I've seen enough to know there's more going on. You're going to tell me everything." He hesitated, and I could see he was weighing his options. But before he could respond, I added, "If you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows what you're doing." That seemed to get through to him. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing around the coffee shop as if looking for an escape route. "Look, man, it's not what you think," he started, his voice low. "Emma's cool, but I didn't mean for things to go this far." My heart raced as I leaned closer. "What do you mean? How far has it gone?" He ran a hand through his hair, clearly flustered. "We started talking more during rides. It was just chemistry, you know? I didn't want to fall for her. She's married, and I didn't want to mess that up. But then she started calling me outside of work, asking to meet up and—" I clenched my fists, trying to keep my cool. "So you admit it? You're sleeping with my wife?" He sighed, looking genuinely remorseful. It was just supposed to be a fling. A little fun. I didn't think it'd mean anything, but she's really something. I stood up, feeling the heat rising in my cheeks. You're telling me you didn't think this would hurt anyone? You're part of this, Marcus. You need to own up to it. He looked around again, his eyes darting nervously. Okay. Just don't make a scene. I'll talk to her. I never meant to hurt you. We just got caught up in the moment. Talk to her? I scoffed. She won't listen to you. She's too busy lying to my face. Marcus lowered his voice. I'll tell her it's over. I don't want to be the reason you two split. Just give me some time. I felt a strange mix of anger and pity. Part of me wanted to believe him, but I knew I couldn't trust either of them anymore. You think I'm going to just let this slide? I have proof. I saw you kissing her. This isn't over. I turned and walked out of the coffee shop, my mind racing. I had to confront Emma. I needed to lay it all out on the table and see if she'd confess. But first I needed a plan. If she was going to lie to me, I wouldn't let her get away with it. I had to prepare myself for the storm that was about to hit. The rest of the day felt like a blur. I couldn't focus at work, I just kept thinking about the confrontation. By the time I got home, the tension in the air was palpable. Emma was in the living room, scrolling through her phone, and she looked up with that same cheerful smile. My stomach turned. Hey! How was your evening? She asked, all sweetness. I took a deep breath, ready to confront her, my heart pounding in my chest. We need to talk. The moment those words left my mouth, the smile on Emma's face faded, replaced by a flicker of confusion. Talk about what? She asked, trying to play it cool, but I could see her pulse quicken. About you and Marcus, I said, keeping my voice steady. I needed to maintain control. I know everything. Her eyes widened, and for a split second, she looked genuinely shocked. Then came the deflection. What are you talking about? Marcus? He's just a driver. You can't seriously think there's anything going on. I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone, showing her the photo I had taken of them. The color drained from her face. I saw you two kissing, Emma. How long has this been going on? She froze, staring at the screen, and then she turned to me, her expression shifting from shock to something more defensive. You're not serious right now. This is just a misunderstanding. We were just joking around. Joking around? I snapped, my voice rising. That doesn't look like joking to me. You're betraying me. Her eyes narrowed, and suddenly, she flipped the switch. You know what? You're being ridiculous. Just because you saw one picture doesn't mean you know the whole story. Maybe I was just being friendly. Friendly? I laughed bitterly. That's a hell of a way to be friendly, Emma. I've been nothing but supportive of you. You've been lying to my face, and now you expect me to believe this is nothing? Her tone turned sharp. You're blowing this way out of proportion. You're suffocating me with your jealousy. Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with your work, I wouldn't need someone else to talk to. Someone else? I shot back. You mean the guy you're sleeping with? Spare me the excuses. This isn't just some emotional affair, this is outright cheating. She exploded. Oh, please. Like you're the perfect husband. You think I don't see how you've been neglecting me? I needed someone to fill that void. The accusation stung, but I couldn't let her divert the blame. This isn't about me. You chose to betray my trust. You chose to cheat. The hysterical anger on her face melted into something more manipulative. You're going to ruin everything over a silly mistake? Do you really want to throw away our whole marriage because of this? I felt the weight of her words hit me. You think this is a mistake? I've got proof of your affair, Emma. This isn't just a slip-up. It's a choice, and I won't stand for it. She looked at me, eyes flashing with defiance. So what are you going to do? You can't just threaten me. If you want to play this game, you better be ready for the consequences. I took a step back, feeling my resolve harden. You're right. I'm done playing games. I'm filing for divorce. Her face twisted in anger, and for a moment I saw a glimpse of the woman I had loved turn into someone I barely recognized. You can't be serious. You're going to throw everything away? You'll regret this. But I wasn't going to back down. I had already made up my mind. The silence hung heavy between us after my declaration, punctuated only by the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Emma's expression shifted from rage to disbelief, and I could see her calculating her next move. Divorce? She repeated, almost mocking. You really think that's the answer? You'll be the one losing everything. This is insane. I crossed my arms, refusing to let her manipulate me any further. You're the one who chose to betray me. You think I'm going to just sit back and let it slide? Her voice rose, a mix of desperation and fury. And you think I'm just going to roll over and let you walk away? You don't know what you're asking for. Then tell me the truth, Emma. I pressed. Was it just Marcus? How many others are there? She took a step closer, her eyes wild. You don't get to interrogate me. You're not my judge. If you want to drag this out in court, fine. But don't act like you're the innocent one here. I felt a surge of frustration. I didn't cheat on you. I didn't lie to you. You have no right to turn this around on me. Maybe I wouldn't have if you'd been a better husband. She shot back, her voice dripping with venom. You've been so wrapped up in your job, it's like I don't even exist to you anymore. That stung, but I didn't let it show. You're twisting this, Emma. I was there for you every step of the way, and you turned your back on me. Don't make it seem like this is my fault. For a moment, she looked almost vulnerable, her defenses crumbling as she realized the gravity of what was happening. But it didn't last long. Her facade snapped back into place, and her tone turned icy. If you want to play hardball, fine. But you're not going to come out on top. I'll make sure of that. My stomach nodded at her words, but I knew I couldn't back down now. You can try, but I'm not scared of you. I'll show everyone the truth. I'll make sure they know who you really are. Good luck with that, she sneered. I've got plenty of friends who'll back me up. You're going to look like the bad guy. I shook my head, my resolve hardening. No matter how this plays out, you've lost my trust. And trust me, you've lost me. Emma turned away, her expression a mixture of anger and desperation. You'll regret this. You're throwing away everything we built together for what? A mistake? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. You've already thrown it away. You made your choice. With that, I walked out of the room, my heart pounding. I knew the road ahead was going to be painful, but I had made my decision. No more lies. No more games. It was time to take control of my life again. The days that followed were a blur of emotions. I felt a strange mix of relief and heartbreak, but I knew I had to stick to my decision. I spent hours researching divorce, trying to understand what I needed to do to protect myself. The thought of facing Emma in a legal setting sent chills down my spine, but I was determined not to back down. I decided to consult a lawyer, someone who could help me navigate this mess. After a few sessions, I felt more prepared. My lawyer was sharp, asking the right questions, and I began to see the path ahead. It wasn't just about ending a marriage. It was about reclaiming my life and moving forward. Meanwhile, Emma was still trying to play her games. She flooded our home with passive-aggressive comments, often pretending everything was normal. She'd ask me about work, cook dinner, and act like we were just two busy people cohabiting. But I could feel the tension in every interaction. It was suffocating. One evening, I came home late after a meeting. As I walked in, I noticed a strange vibe in the air. Emma was on the couch, scrolling through her phone, and her expression shifted when she saw me. Hey, she said, trying to sound casual, but I could see the tension in her posture. Hey, I replied, not in the mood for small talk. I headed straight to the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water. As I stood at the sink, I heard her voice behind me. I was thinking, maybe we could talk things over? You know, before things get really messy. I turned to face her, my expression hardening. Talk? About what? You think I'm going to reconsider after everything that's happened? She stepped closer, a mix of desperation and anger in her eyes. I don't want this to end like this. We can fix it. Just give it a chance. Fix it? I scoffed, shaking my head. You've already made your choices. You've betrayed my trust. How can you expect me to just forget that? Maybe if you were more present, I wouldn't have felt the need to look elsewhere. She fired back, her voice rising. You've been so wrapped up in your work, I didn't think you cared anymore. Don't twist this on me, Emma. You chose to cheat. You made that choice, not me. She crossed her arms defensively, but I could see cracks in her facade. Fine. If you want to throw everything away, go ahead. But don't act like you're the victim here. I'm not the victim, I'm just done playing your games, I said firmly. I'm filing for divorce. You can either accept that or make this harder than it has to be. Emma's face contorted with anger and something else, fear, maybe. You think this is easy for me? You're ruining everything. No, you did that when you decided to cheat, I said, feeling the weight of the moment. I deserve better, and I'm done being treated like this. She glared at me, her eyes wild with emotion. You'll regret this. I'll make sure everyone knows you're the bad guy. Do what you want, I replied, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. I'm done being afraid of you. With that, I turned away, leaving her fuming in the living room. I knew the battle ahead wouldn't be easy, but I finally felt a sense of freedom. I was taking control of my life, and there was no turning back now. The next few weeks felt like a war zone. Emma and I avoided each other as much as possible, but when we did cross paths, it was like walking on eggshells. Every conversation was laced with tension, and she was relentless with her passive-aggressive comments. One evening I came home from the office to find her pacing in the living room, phone in hand. I barely had a chance to set my bag down before she launched into a tirade. You know, I've been talking to my friends, and they think you're being completely unreasonable, she said, her voice dripping with contempt. You're just going to throw away everything we've built together because of a silly fling? Silly fling? I echoed, incredulous. You really think that's what this is? This isn't just some minor incident, it's a betrayal of trust. She rolled her eyes, a smirk forming on her lips. Trust? You think you've been so trustworthy? You've been so absorbed in your work that I felt completely alone. It's no wonder I sought comfort elsewhere. I felt my anger boil over. So you're saying this is my fault? That I pushed you into another man's arms? That's rich, Emma. She took a step closer, her expression dangerously intense. You think you can just walk away without any consequences? You'll look like the bad guy in all this. You'll lose friends, family, everyone. Maybe they'll see the truth, that I deserve better than someone who cheats. I shot back. You think I'm scared of losing people? I'm ready to start fresh, without the lies. Good luck with that, she sneered, crossing her arms defiantly. You think you can just move on? You'll be miserable without me. Funny, I've felt miserable with you for a long time, I said, feeling a sense of empowerment I hadn't felt before. I'm not your emotional punching bag anymore. Emma's expression darkened, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. You really want to do this? Go to war? You're making a huge mistake. Trust me, I've thought this through, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm ready for whatever comes next. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. I had no idea what Emma might do in retaliation, but I was done being a victim. I started reaching out to friends and family, telling them what was happening. I needed a support system, people who would remind me I wasn't alone in this. To my surprise, most of them were supportive. They listened, offered advice, and reassured me that I was making the right choice. I felt stronger each time I spoke about it. Emma's manipulation didn't hold power over me anymore. A few days later, as I was getting ready for work, I heard her shouting on the phone in the other room. I could only catch snippets of her conversation, but it sounded like she was trying to rally her friends against me. My gut twisted at the thought, but I steeled myself. I couldn't let her intimidate me. I grabbed my briefcase, took a deep breath, and walked out the door, ready to face whatever came next. I was finally reclaiming my life, and nothing would stop me now. Emma's phone tirades became a regular thing, and it was clear she was preparing for a full-scale attack. Each morning, as I left for work, I'd hear her on the phone, undoubtedly spinning the narrative, painting me as the villain in her story. But it didn't matter anymore. I had my own moves to make. I started to gather evidence. Screenshots, messages, bank statements, anything that would paint the full picture of what was really happening. My lawyer had advised me to be thorough, and I wasn't taking any chances. Emma thought she could intimidate me, but I knew the truth would be on my side. One day, I came home early, feeling uneasy. Something about the way she'd been acting lately made me think she was up to more than just damage control. When I walked into the house, everything seemed quiet. Too quiet. The air was thick with tension. I headed toward the bedroom, and that's when I heard it. Muffled voices. One of them was definitely Emma's, but there was another, deeper voice. My pulse quickened. I moved closer, my heart pounding in my chest, and then I saw it, her phone, sitting on the bed, screen lit up with a video call. And there he was. Marcus. They didn't see me at first. Emma was laughing, that same flirty laugh she used to reserve for me, and Marcus was smiling on the other end. "I miss you," she said, her voice sickeningly sweet. I stood frozen in the doorway, unable to believe what I was seeing. After everything, after all the lies and the arguments, she was still doing this. Still playing me for a fool. I snapped. "What the hell is this?" Emma jumped, scrambling to end the call. She fumbled with the phone, her face going pale as she realized I had caught her in the act. "It's not what you think," she stammered, eyes wide with panic. "Oh, really? Because it looks like you're still sneaking around with him," I said, my voice cold. "How many times do you have to lie before you realize it's over?" She tried to recover, her face twisting into that familiar manipulative expression. "It was just a call. We weren't doing anything wrong." I stepped closer, my blood boiling. "You think I'm stupid, Emma? You think I don't know what's been going on?" For the first time, she seemed genuinely cornered, her usual bravado faltering. I needed someone to talk to. You've been so distant, and Marcus understands me. It's not like we're having sex anymore, it's just... Save it." I cut her off. "I'm done with your excuses. You're still lying even now. I don't care if it's physical or emotional, it's all betrayal." Emma's face hardened. "You can't control me. You're just trying to make yourself feel like the victim. Maybe if you'd been a better husband, I wouldn't need someone else." I shook my head, disgusted. "You don't get to blame this on me. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences. I'm not backing down." She glared at me, her voice dripping with venom. "Fine. If you want a war, you'll get one. I'll make sure you regret ever crossing me." But her threats no longer had the same effect. I could see through her now, and I was ready for whatever came next. As I turned and walked out of the room, I felt a strange sense of calm. The storm was coming, but this time, I was prepared to weather it. Pounding in my chest as I pressed my ear against the door. I could make out snippets of their conversation, words like plot and strategy floated through the wood. I strained to hear more, and my stomach churned as I realized Emma was plotting something with a friend, likely trying to figure out how to counter my divorce filing. I took a step back, heart racing. I couldn't let her see me. I didn't want to give her any more ammunition. I quietly retreated to the living room, my mind racing. I had to stay a step ahead of her, and I couldn't let her manipulate the narrative any longer. I decided to call my lawyer. I explained the situation, and he suggested I document everything, including this latest incident. He also encouraged me to be cautious about how I approached her moving forward. "If she's strategizing against you, you need to be prepared," he warned. That night, I sat in the living room, laptop open, organizing my evidence. It felt liberating to have a plan, to finally be taking control. I was determined not to let Emma's chaos drag me down. The following day, I had a meeting with my lawyer to discuss the next steps. I outlined everything I had gathered, and he nodded, impressed with my thoroughness. "You're doing great. The more prepared you are, the better position you'll be in," he said. As I left his office, I felt a surge of confidence. I was ready for whatever Emma had planned. When I returned home that evening, I was met with an icy stare. Emma was sitting on the couch, arms crossed, her phone in hand. "I need to talk to you," she said, her tone steely. "About what?" I replied, bracing myself. "About this divorce. I've been thinking," she said, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "Maybe we can work something out. You know, before things get messy." "Like what?" I challenged, my patience wearing thin. "You want me to sweep everything under the rug?" She hesitated, clearly weighing her words. "I'm saying that we can negotiate. I don't want to lose everything either. This doesn't have to be a war." "Then stop lying and trying to manipulate me," I said, my voice firm. "You've already made your choice. You think I'd go back to pretending everything is fine after everything you've done?" Her expression twisted in anger. "You're being unreasonable. You're making this into a spectacle for no reason." "No reason?" I scoffed. "You're the one who brought this on yourself. You made this a spectacle when you chose to cheat." She stood up, her hands on her hips. "You'll regret this. I'll make sure everyone knows you're the one who pushed me away." "Go ahead," I replied, feeling my resolve harden. "But remember, the truth is on my side." As I turned to walk away, I could feel her eyes burning into my back. I was ready for the fight. I was tired of being afraid, tired of being manipulated. I was finally reclaiming my life, and I wouldn't let anyone, especially Emma, stand in my way. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about how far I had come. I had faced my fears, gathered my evidence, and was prepared to take the next step. I was done being the victim. It was time for me to take charge of my own narrative. The days turned into a blur of preparation and tension. Emma was on the warpath, and I could feel her attempts to manipulate the situation ramping up. She'd make subtle comments to my friends and family, painting me as the villain in our story, trying to garner sympathy while I was just trying to navigate the storm she had created. One evening, I came home to find her in a heated discussion on the phone. I caught snippets of her conversation, words like divorce and custody echoed through the room. My heart sank. She was trying to weaponize the situation against me. I waited quietly in the kitchen, listening intently. "You think he'll just walk away with everything?" "No way. I'll make sure he pays," she said, her voice dripping with venom. My gut twisted. I had to confront her, but I needed to be smart about it. When she hung up, I casually walked into the living room, trying to maintain an air of calm. "Who were you talking to?" I asked, trying to sound nonchalant. Emma turned to me, her expression shifting quickly from surprise to defiance. "Just a friend," she replied, brushing me off. "Really? Because it sounded like you were plotting," I said, crossing my arms. She scoffed, trying to appear unfazed. "You're being paranoid. I'm just trying to figure out how to handle all this drama." "Drama? You created this drama, Emma. You think I'm going to just let you manipulate the situation?" I pressed. Her eyes flashed with anger. "Manipulate? I'm just trying to protect myself. You're the one making this a battleground. Protect yourself? By lying and scheming?" I shot back. "That's not protection, that's cowardice." She took a step closer, her voice low and dangerous. "You have no idea what I'm capable of. I won't let you walk away unscathed." I felt a chill run down my spine, but I stood my ground. "You can try, but the truth is powerful, and it will come out." The tension in the room was palpable, and I knew I had to tread carefully. If she was willing to go this far, I had to be prepared for the fallout. I started documenting everything more meticulously, keeping track of her actions and words, just in case I needed it later. That weekend I attended a gathering at a friend's house, seeking some normalcy and support. As I mingled, I overheard snippets of conversation about Emma, and I realized how far her manipulation had reached. Friends who had once seen us as a couple were now getting the other side of the story. I approached a close friend, Sarah, who had always been my confidant. "I heard Emma's been talking to you," I said, my voice low. "What's she saying?" She sighed, looking conflicted. "She's painting you as the bad guy, saying you drove her to cheat because of your job. It's pretty intense." I felt my blood boil, but I knew I had to stay composed. "That's not the truth. I've been working hard to provide for us, and she chose to betray me. I need you to understand that." "I do," Sarah replied softly. "But you know how she can be. She's really good at pulling people in her direction. I need your support now more than ever," I said, desperation creeping into my voice. "I can't let her manipulate everyone. I'll talk to others, but you need to be careful," she warned. "She's unpredictable right now." As I left the gathering, I felt a mix of anger and determination. Emma might be playing a game, but I was ready to show everyone the truth. I was done being the target of her manipulation. It was time to take my power back and fight for my future. The following week was a whirlwind. Emma's relentless attempts to spin the narrative began to wear on me, but I was prepared. I had gathered enough evidence and had the support of friends who believed in me. Each day felt like a step closer to finalizing the divorce and reclaiming my life. One afternoon, I received a call from my lawyer. "We need to meet ASAP," he said, his tone serious. "I've heard some concerning things about Emma's plans." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" "She's been reaching out to people in your circle, spreading rumors and trying to gather information about your finances. It looks like she's planning to fight hard." I clenched my jaw, anger bubbling up. "What's her angle?" "She's trying to create a narrative that you're the one who's been neglectful and unfaithful to your marriage," he explained. "We need to counteract that with hard evidence before she makes a move." I nodded, determination coursing through me. "I've been documenting everything. I won't let her manipulate this any longer." We set a meeting for later that week to prepare for whatever she had in store. As I hung up, I felt a surge of anxiety mixed with a newfound strength. I wouldn't let Emma control the narrative. That evening, when I returned home, the atmosphere felt charged. Emma was in the kitchen, her back turned to me. I could sense her tension, and I was ready to confront her. "Got a minute?" I asked, my voice steady. She turned, her eyes narrowing. "What do you want?" "I want to know why you're spreading lies about me," I said, keeping my tone firm. "You're trying to manipulate our friends against me. It's pathetic." She laughed, a sharp, cold sound. "Oh, please. You think I'm the only one who can spin a story? You're the one who's been distant and neglectful. If you hadn't been so wrapped up in your job, maybe I wouldn't have sought comfort elsewhere. Stop playing the victim, Emma. You made your choices, and you're trying to cover them up by ruining my reputation. It won't work," I replied, feeling my resolve strengthen. "Why don't you just admit that you've been a terrible husband?" she shot back, her voice rising. "You think I wanted to cheat? You drove me to it." "Enough," I said, cutting her off. "I'm filing for divorce, and I'm not letting you twist the truth anymore. You can threaten me all you want, but the truth is stronger than your lies." She stepped closer, fury in her eyes. "You'll regret this. I'll make sure everyone knows the real you. Do what you want, Emma." "I'm ready for it," I said, refusing to back down. That night, I took a deep breath and began organizing all my documentation. I reviewed every message, every conversation, and every piece of evidence I had. I was determined to be ready for the fight ahead. The next day, I met with my lawyer, armed with everything I'd gathered. He was impressed with my preparation. "You've done an excellent job collecting evidence," he said. "We can counter her narrative effectively. She's playing a dangerous game." As we discussed strategies, I felt a surge of confidence. I was finally in control of my life, ready to confront the chaos Emma had created. The storm was brewing, but I was ready to face it head on, knowing the truth was on my side. The day of the first mediation meeting arrived, and I felt a mixture of anxiety and determination. I had prepared myself for this moment, knowing Emma would be ready to fight. I arrived early, reviewing my notes one last time in the waiting area, heart pounding as I anticipated the confrontation. When Emma walked in, she wore a carefully crafted mask of confidence, but I could see the tension beneath the surface. Her eyes darted around the room, scanning for any signs of weakness. As we settled into the conference room, I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us. The mediator introduced herself, a calm and professional presence, and began explaining the process. I could sense Emma fidgeting, her discomfort evident. "Let's start by discussing what each of you hopes to achieve through this mediation," the mediator suggested. Emma shot me a glance, a fleeting moment of defiance. "I just want what's fair. This was a partnership, and I deserve my share," she said, her voice steady. I couldn't let her lie go unchallenged. "Fairness is based on honesty, Emma. You've manipulated and lied your way through this situation. If we're going to discuss fairness, we need to address the truth first." The mediator nodded, encouraging us to focus on constructive dialogue. But Emma wasn't backing down. "You think you're the good guy here? You've made me look like the villain, but I'm not the only one at fault." I took a deep breath, keeping my composure. "You made the choice to cheat. You made that decision knowing the risks. I'm not going to let you twist this any further." The mediator intervened, trying to redirect the conversation. "Let's focus on the specifics. What are the main issues you want to address?" Emma leaned back, a smirk forming on her lips. "I want my share of the assets, and I won't settle for anything less." I nodded, having anticipated this. "I'm prepared to discuss asset division, but we need to be transparent about our finances. That includes everything: your spending, your relationship with Marcus, all of it." Her expression soured, but she quickly masked it. "Fine. But you'll regret bringing this up." As the meeting progressed, I could see her confidence wavering. Each time I presented evidence, her facade cracked a little more. The mediator noted our discussions, and I felt a sense of control begin to shift in my favor. By the end of the session, I could tell Emma was rattled. The mediator summarized our positions and emphasized the importance of transparency and cooperation. "If we continue down this path of conflict, it will only lead to further resentment and pain. You both need to consider what's truly at stake." As we left the meeting, Emma's silence was palpable. I could feel the tension in the air, but I wasn't going to let her intimidation tactics work on me anymore. "Don't think this is over," she said as we walked toward the exit, her voice low and dangerous. "I'm counting on it," I replied, feeling empowered. "But now, I'm ready to fight back. You can't control me anymore, Emma." The drive home was filled with a mix of adrenaline and relief. I felt like I had finally taken a stand. I was no longer the victim in this story. I was reclaiming my narrative. And no matter what came next, I was ready to face it head on. The storm was far from over, but I was determined to weather it, armed with the truth and the knowledge that I was finally in control. The weeks that followed the mediation meeting were intense. Emma's facade began to slip, revealing her vulnerability beneath the bravado. I could see the cracks in her carefully constructed narrative. She had underestimated my resolve, and I was ready to fight for my future. Emma tried to maintain her tactics, making last-minute demands and trying to sway our mutual friends into her corner. But each time I encountered her manipulative games, I stood my ground. I had my lawyer on speed dial, ready to counter any of her moves. One evening I received a call from Sarah, my close friend. "You won't believe what Emma's been saying," she began, her tone urgent. "She's trying to rally people against you, claiming you're the one who cheated and that you're lying about everything." I sighed, feeling a mix of frustration and resignation. I knew she would. But I have the evidence to back up my side. I won't let her twist the truth. "Just be careful," Sarah warned. "She's dangerous when cornered." As I hung up, I felt a renewed sense of determination. Emma could try all she wanted to manipulate the narrative, but the truth was on my side. I decided to take proactive steps to protect myself further. I started documenting everything she said and did, and I reached out to friends to let them know the truth about our situation. Then, one evening, I returned home from work to find Emma waiting for me. She was seated at the kitchen table, a stack of papers in front of her. The look on her face was one of simmering anger mixed with desperation. "Are you ready to talk about the settlement?" she demanded, her tone sharp. "Let's talk," I replied, cautiously taking a seat across from her. I wasn't about to let her intimidate me. "I'm willing to negotiate, but you need to be more reasonable," she said, her voice low. "You can't just walk away with everything." "Reasonable?" I echoed, incredulous. "What would be reasonable is for you to accept responsibility for your actions. You can't just expect me to back down after what you've done." Emma leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "You think you're so righteous, don't you? But you're just as flawed as I am. I won't let you play the victim any longer." I felt a mix of anger and pity. "This isn't about playing victim, Emma. This is about accountability. You made choices that hurt me and destroyed our marriage." Her expression twisted, and for a moment, I could see the cracks in her confidence. "You think this is easy for me? You have no idea what I'm going through." "Maybe not, but you've made it impossible for me to sympathize with you," I said firmly. "You chose this path. It's time to face the consequences." The tension hung heavy in the air, and for the first time, I could see the fear in her eyes. She was losing control, and she knew it. After a long silence, Emma's demeanor shifted. "I need time to think about this," she finally said, her voice shaky. "Take all the time you need. But remember, I'm not backing down," I replied, standing up from the table. As I walked away, I felt a surge of relief. I was done being manipulated. I was reclaiming my life and my narrative, ready to move forward without her toxic presence. In the days that followed, I felt lighter. I focused on my work, my friendships, and my newfound freedom. I was no longer trapped in the chaos of Emma's lies. I was charting my own path. Eventually, the divorce was finalized. As I signed the papers, a weight lifted off my shoulders. I was free to start anew, to rebuild my life on my own terms. Looking back, I realized that Emma had pushed me to my breaking point, but in doing so, she had also helped me discover my strength. I had fought for my truth and won, and now I was ready to embrace the future, whatever it held. And as I stepped out of the lawyer's office, the sun shining bright, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in my life.